Welcome back to Bible Quizzes. We got another 80 questions for you guys on the Old Testament, so let's get started. 1. What was the first act of creation by God according to Genesis? Creation of light, creation of man, or creation of plants? Creation of light, Genesis 1:3, and God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. 2. Who built the ark to survive the great flood? Abraham, Moses, Noah, or David? Noah, Genesis 6:13-14. So God said to Noah, "I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth, so make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it, and coat it with pitch inside and out." 3. What city's walls fell after the Israelites marched around them for 7 days? Ai, Nineveh, Jerusalem, or Jericho? Jericho, Joshua 6:20. When the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. So everyone charged straight in, and they took the city. 4. Which sea did Moses part to let the Israelites escape from Egypt? The Dead Sea, Mediterranean Sea, Sea of Galilee, or Red Sea? Red Sea, Exodus 14:21. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back with a strong east wind and turned it into dry land. The waters were divided. 5. What was the first plague that struck Egypt? Locusts, frogs, darkness, or water turned to blood? Water turned to blood. Exodus 7:20. Moses and Aaron did just as the Lord had commanded. He raised his staff in the presence of Pharaoh and his officials and struck the water of the Nile, and all the water was changed into blood. 6. Who was sold into slavery by his brothers and later became a ruler in Egypt? Joseph, Jacob, Isaac, or Esau? Joseph, Genesis 37:28. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. 7. Who was the first king of Israel? David, Samuel, Solomon, or Saul? Saul, 1 Samuel 10:1. Then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, "Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance?" 8. Which prophet confronted King Ahab and the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel? Elisha, Elijah, Isaiah, or Jeremiah? Elijah, 1 Kings 18:19. Now summon the people from all over Israel to meet me on Mount Carmel, and bring the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. 9. Who interpreted King Nebuchadnezzar's dream and was thrown into the lion's den? Shadrach, Abednego, Meshach, or Daniel? Daniel, 6:16. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve continually, rescue you." 10. Who led the Israelites into the promised land after Moses' death? Aaron, Caleb, Joshua, or Gideon? Joshua, 1:1-2. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, "Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them, to the Israelites." 11. Which book of the Old Testament contains the verse, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want"? Proverbs, Psalms, Isaiah, Ecclesiastes. Psalms 23:1, The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. 12. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope, is found in which book? Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, or Hosea? Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. 13. In which book is the story of the fiery furnace found? Ezekiel, Jonah, Daniel, or Isaiah? Daniel 3:19-20. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. 14. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom, and instruction is from which book? Ecclesiastes, Psalms, Proverbs, or Job? Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. 15. Which prophet's book starts with a vision concerning Judah and Jerusalem? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, or Amos? Isaiah 1:1. The vision concerning Judah and Jerusalem that Isaiah son of Amos saw during the reigns of Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, kings of Judah. 16. What event is celebrated during the Jewish festival of Passover? Giving of the 10 Commandments, Exodus from Egypt, fall of Jericho, or dedication of Solomon's temple? Exodus from Egypt. Exodus 12:14. This is a day you are to commemorate. For the generations to come you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord, a lasting ordinance. 17. What was the final plague that convinced Pharaoh to let the Israelites go? Darkness, boils, locusts, or death of firstborn? Death of firstborn. Exodus 12:29-30. At midnight the Lord struck down all the firstborn in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sat on the throne to the firstborn of the prisoner who was in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all the livestock as well. 17. Who received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai? Moses. Exodus 31:18. When the Lord finished speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave him the 2 tablets of the covenant law, the tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. 19. What was the name of the tower built by the people in an attempt to reach heaven? Babel, Jericho, Bethel, or Sodom? Babel. Genesis 11:4. Then they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. 20. Which book details the creation of the world? Exodus, Genesis, Leviticus, or Numbers? Genesis 1:1. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. 21. David defeated Goliath in a sword fight. False. 1 Samuel 17:49. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead and he fell face down on the ground. 22. Who was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind? Elijah, Elisha, Enoch, or Moses? Elijah, 2 Kings 2:11. As they were walking along and talking together, suddenly a chariot of fire and horses of fire appeared and separated the two of them, and Elijah went up to heaven in a whirlwind. 23. Who was the father of many nations according to God's promise? Noah, Abraham, Moses, or Isaac? Abraham, Genesis 17:5. No longer will you be called Abram, your name will be Abraham, for I have made you a father of many nations. 24. What was the name of the centurion who guarded Paul on his journey to Rome? Julius, Longinus, Cornelius, or Sergius Paulus? Julius, Acts 27:1. And when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, they delivered Paul and some other prisoners to one named Julius, a centurion of the Augustan regiment. 25. In the Gospel of John, who was the high priest that year when Jesus was arrested? Annas, Caiaphas, Nicodemus, or Gamaliel? Caiaphas, John 11:49. And one of them, Caiaphas, being high priest that year, said to them, You know nothing at all. 26. Which New Testament book contains the verse, The love of money is the root of all kinds of evil? Hebrews, 1 Timothy, Titus, or James? First Timothy 6:10. For the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness, and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. 27. What was the name of the island where Paul was shipwrecked on his way to Rome? Malta, Crete, Cyprus, or Patmos? "24. Who was known for his wisdom and built the temple in Jerusalem? Saul, Solomon, David, or Samuel? Solomon, 1 Kings 6:1. In the 480th year after the Israelites came out of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon reign over Israel, in the month of Ziv, the 2nd month, he began to build the temple of the Lord. 25. Who was a strong man betrayed by Delilah? Samuel, Samson, Saul, or David? Samson, Judges 16:6. So Delilah said to Samson, Tell me the secret of your great strength and how you can be tied up and subdued. 26. Who interpreted dreams for Pharaoh and saved Egypt from famine? Joseph, Moses, Daniel, or Joshua? Joseph, Genesis 41:15-16. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream you can interpret it. I cannot do it. Joseph replied to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. 27. Who was Ruth's mother-in-law? Naomi, Hannah, Esther, or Miriam? Naomi, Ruth 1:22. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. 28. Who was the last judge of Israel and the anointed for the first two kings? Eli, Samuel, Nathan, or Gad? Samuel, 1 Samuel 10:1. Then Samuel took a flask of olive oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, Has not the Lord anointed you ruler over his inheritance? 1 Samuel 16:13. So Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the presence of his brothers. And from that day on, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon David. Samuel then went to Ramah. 29. Who is the mother of Isaac? Sarah, Genesis 21, 2-3. Sarah became pregnant and bore a son to Abraham in his old age, and the very time God had promised him, Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son of Sarah bore to him. 30. Who was Jacob's favorite son? Judah, Benjamin, Reuben, or Joseph? Joseph, Genesis 37:3. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. 31. Who is the woman who hid the Hebrew spies in Jericho? Deborah, Ruth, Rahab, or Esther? Rahab, Joshua 2:1. Then Joshua son of Nun secretly sent 2 spies from Shittim. Go, look over the land, he said, especially Jericho. So they went and entered the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there. 32. Who was Moses' sister? Miriam, Deborah, Zipporah, or Naomi? Miriam, Exodus 15:20. Then Miriam the prophet, Aaron's sister, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women followed her, with timbrels and dancing. 33. In which book is it written, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth? Exodus, Genesis, Leviticus, or Numbers? Genesis 1:1. In the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. 34. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding is from which book? Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, or Job? Proverbs 3:5. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. 35. Which book contains the story of David and Goliath? 1 Kings, 2 Samuel, 1 Samuel, or 2 Kings? First Samuel 17, David and Goliath. 36. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles is found in which book? Psalms, Isaiah, Proverbs, or Jeremiah? Isaiah 40:31. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. 37. Which book contains the verse, I will never leave you nor forsake you? Genesis, Deuteronomy, Exodus, or Joshua? Joshua 1:5. No one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life, as I was with Moses, so I will be with you, I will never leave you nor forsake you. 38. In which book is the vision of the valley of dry bones found? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, or Daniel? Ezekiel 37:1-14. The valley of dry bones. 39. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, is a prophecy found in which book? Jeremiah, Micah, Isaiah, or Malachi? Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. 40. In which book is the story of the burning bush found? Genesis, Leviticus, Exodus, or Numbers? Exodus 3:2. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in flames of fire from within a bush. Moses saw that though the bush was on fire, it did not burn up. 41. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you is found in Job. False. It's found in Numbers. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. 42. Which book contains the story of Samson and Delilah? Joshua, Ruth, Judges, or 1 Samuel? Judges 16:4-5. Sometime later he fell in love with a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The rulers of the Philistines went to her and said, "See if you can lure him into showing you the secret of his great strength and how we can overpower him so we may tie him up and subdue him. Each one of us will give you 1,100 shekels of silver." 43. Which king had a dream about a statue with a head of gold? Cyrus, Darius, Nebuchadnezzar, or Artaxerxes? Nebuchadnezzar. Daniel 2:31-32. Your Majesty looked, and there before you stood a large statue, an enormous dazzling statue, awesome in appearance. The head of the statue was made of pure gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze. 44. Who led the Israelites in a battle against the Midianites with only 300 men? Samson, Gideon, Jephthah, or Ehud? Gideon. Judges 7:7. The Lord said to Gideon, "With 300 men that lapped, I will save you and give the Midianites into your hands. Let all the others go home." 45. Who was thrown into a fiery furnace for refusing to worship an idol? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Daniel 3:19-23. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude toward them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. 46. Which prophet called down fire from heaven to consume a sacrifice on Mount Carmel? Elisha, Jeremiah, Isaiah, or Elijah? Elijah. 1 Kings 18:36. At the time of sacrifice, the prophet Elijah stepped forward and prayed, "Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant and have done all these things at your command. Answer me, Lord, answer me, so these people will know that you, Lord, are God, and that you are turning their hearts back again." 47. Who was the king of Babylon during the fall of Jerusalem? Cyrus, Belshazzar, Nebuchadnezzar, or Darius? Nebuchadnezzar. 2 Kings 25:1. So in the 9th year of Zedekiah's reign, on the 10th day of the 10th month, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, marched against Jerusalem with his whole army. He encamped outside the city and built siege works all around it. 48. Who prophesied the coming of a new covenant written on the hearts of people? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, or Daniel? Jeremiah. Jeremiah 31:31-33. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. 49. Which Persian king allowed the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple? Darius, Cyrus, Xerxes, or Artaxerxes? Cyrus. Ezra 1:1-3. In the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, in order to fulfill the word of the Lord spoken by Jeremiah, the Lord moved the heart of Cyrus, king of Persia, to make a proclamation throughout his realm and also to put it in writing. 50. Amos married a prostitute as sign of Israel's unfaithfulness to God. False. Hosea 1:2. When the Lord began to speak through Hosea, the Lord said to him, "Go marry a promiscuous woman and have children with her, for like an adulterous wife, this land is guilty of unfaithfulness to the Lord." 51. Who was thrown into a cistern and left to die, but later rescued? Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, or Daniel? Jeremiah 38, 6-13. So they took Jeremiah and put him into the cistern of Malchijah, the king's son, which was in the courtyard of the guard. They lowered Jeremiah by ropes into the cistern. It had no water in it, only mud, and Jeremiah sank down into the mud. 52. Which city did Jonah reluctantly go to and preach against its wickedness? Nineveh, Babylon, Tyre, or Damascus? Nineveh. Jonah 3, 1-4. Then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord and went to Nineveh. Now Nineveh was a very large city. It took 3 days to go through it. Jonah began by going a day's journey into the city, proclaiming, 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. 53. Who succeeded Moses as the leader of the Israelites? Aaron, Joshua, Caleb, or Eleazar? Joshua, Deuteronomy 34:9. Now Joshua son of Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites listened to him and did what the Lord had commanded Moses. 54. Which king of Israel was known for his idolatry and wickedness, married to Jezebel? Ahab, 1 Kings 16, 30-31. Ahab son of Omri did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. He not only considered it trivial to commit the sins of Jeroboam son of Nebat, but he also married Jezebel, daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and began to serve Baal and worship him. 55. What was the sign of God's covenant with Noah? Rainbow, olive branch, dove, or burning bush? Rainbow. Genesis 9:13. I've set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. 56. Who was the husband of Bathsheba and sent to die in battle by King David? Uriah, Joab, Nathan, or Julius? Uriah, 2 Samuel 11:15. In it he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw from him so he'll be struck down and die. 57. Who had a dream about a ladder reaching to heaven? Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, or James? Jacob. Genesis 28:12. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. 58. Who was the wife of King Ahasuerus, Xerxes, and saved her people from genocide? Vashti, Ruth, Esther, or Hannah? Esther. Esther 4:13-14. He sent back this answer, do not think that because you are in the king's house you alone of all the Jews will escape, for if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish, and who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. 59. Who was the high priest during Samuel's childhood? Eli, Phinehas, Aaron, or Zadok? Eli. 1 Samuel 3:1. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. 60. Who was the youngest son of Jacob and Rachel? Reuben, Benjamin, Joseph, or Judah? Benjamin. Genesis 35:18. As she breathed her last, for she was dying, she named her son Benoni, but his father named him Benjamin. 61. Who was the king of Judah known for his religious reforms and rediscovery of the law? Hezekiah, Asa, Josiah, or Jehoshaphat? Josiah. 2 Kings 22:10-11. Then Shaphan the secretary informed the king, Hilkiah the priest has given me a book. And Shaphan read from it in the presence of the king. When the king heard the words of the book of the law, he tore his robes. 62. Who was the Moabite woman who became an ancestor of King David? Ruth, Miriam, Esther, or Deborah? Ruth 4:13-14. So Boaz took Ruth and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The woman said to Naomi, Praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. 63. Who is the prophet that foretold the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple? Isaiah, Amos, Jeremiah, or Ezekiel? Jeremiah 7:14. Therefore what I did to Shiloh I will now do to the house that bears my name, the temple you trust in, the place I gave to you and your ancestors. 64. Who was the first man created by God? Abel, Noah, Adam, or Seth? Adam. Genesis 2:7. Then the Lord God formed a man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. 65. Who succeeded Solomon as king and saw the kingdom divided? Jeroboam, Asa, Rehoboam, or Jehoshaphat? Rehoboam. 1 Kings 12:18-19. King Rehoboam sent out Adoniram, who was in charge of forced labor, but all Israel stoned him to death. King Rehoboam, however, managed to get into his chariot and escape to Jerusalem. So Israel has been in rebellion against the house of David to this day. 66. Who was the wife of Abraham and mother of Isaac? Sarah, Rachel, Rebekah, or Leah? Sarah. Genesis 21:3. Abraham gave the name Isaac to the son Sarah bore him. 67. Which book contains the verse, I have set the Lord always before me, because he is at my right hand, I shall not be moved? Psalms, Ecclesiastes, Proverbs, or Songs of Solomon? Psalms. Psalm 16:8. I keep my eyes always on the Lord. With him at my right hand I will not be shaken. 68. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end is found in which book? Psalms, Lamentations, Proverbs, or Ezekiel? Lamentations. Lamentations 3:22. Because of the Lord great love we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. 69. Which book contains the verse, but let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream? Isaiah, Micah, Jeremiah, or Amos? Amos. Amos 5:24. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. 70. Who was the woman, judge, and prophetess who led Israel to victory over Canaan? Hannah, Deborah, Miriam, or Jael? Deborah. Judges 4:4-5. Now Deborah, a prophet, the wife of Lapidoth, was leading Israel at that time. She held a court under the palm of Deborah between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her to have their disputes decided. 71. And the Lord said unto Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book, is found in which book? Genesis, Numbers, Leviticus, or Exodus? Exodus 17:14. Then the Lord said to Moses, Write this on a scroll as something to be remembered and to make sure that Joshua hears it, because I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven. 72. Who interpreted Pharaoh's dreams about 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine? Moses, Simon, John, or Joseph? Joseph. Genesis 41:25-26. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and the same dream. 73. Which event marked the end of the Babylonian captivity? The decree of Cyrus, rebuilding of the temple, fall of Babylon, or return of Nehemiah? Decree of Cyrus. Ezra 1:2. This is what Cyrus, king of Persia, says. The Lord, the God of heaven, has given me all the kingdoms of the earth, and he has appointed me to build a temple for him at Jerusalem and Judah. 74. In which book is it written, The Lord bless thee and keep thee? Genesis, Leviticus, Exodus, or Numbers? Numbers 6:24. The Lord bless you and keep you. 75. Which book contains the verse, The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked? Isaiah, Jotham, Ezekiel, or Jeremiah? Jeremiah 17:9. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? 76. What event showed God's displeasure with the Israelites' idol worship at Mount Sinai? Breaking of stone tablets, swallowing of the idol by the earth, sending of a plague, or destruction of the golden calf? Destruction of the golden calf. Exodus 32:20. And he took the calf the people had made and burned it in the fire. Then he ground it to powder, scattered it on the water, and made the Israelites drink it. 77. What event marked the Israelites' entry into the Promised Land? Fall of Jericho, crossing of the Jordan River, Battle of Ai, or the anointing of Joshua? Crossing of the Jordan River. Joshua 3:17. The priests who carried the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stopped in the middle of the Jordan and stood on dry ground, while all Israel passed by until the whole nation had completed the crossing on dry ground. 78. Who was a nephew of Abraham and fathered 2 nations, the Moabites and the Ammonites? Timothy, Titus, Ishmael, or Lot? Lot. Genesis 19:36-37. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father. The older daughter had a son, and she named him Moab. He is the father of the Moabites of today. The younger daughter also had a son, and she named him Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the Ammonites of today. 79. What event led to the construction of the Tower of Babel? Confusion of languages, the flood, desire to reach heaven, or scattering of people across the earth? Desire to reach heaven. Genesis 11:4. Then they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. 80. Which book contains the verse, "And I will give you a new heart and a new spirit I will put within you"? Isaiah, Ezekiel, Jeremiah, or Daniel? Ezekiel 36:26. I'll give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I'll remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. And that's all our questions today. So remember, let us know how you did down below and then share this with your friends and family, and then we'll see you guys in the next one.